I plowed through Sharp Objects in 2 days. The performances, the atmosphere, and visual style made for engaging television. But if there were any movies or shows it reminded me of, it'd be True Detective and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. All because they each knew how to tell a good murder mystery. And looking back on all three, they each have 4 particular steps on how to make that happen. Audiences may watch mysteries for the case itself, but it's always the detectives and their struggles that keep us invested and coming back for more. You want characters who would be interesting even without a mystery to solve. In True Detective, what sets Marty and Rust apart are how different their lives are. Marty lives happily with his wife and daughters, people Rust no longer has in his life, and because of that, he drowns his sorrows to deal with it, making it easy to see how they're always against each other. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo sets our 2 leads apart by establishing them as characters before they even meet. Mikhail's lost a major libel case and all his savings with it. Elizabeth's had worse things to deal with in life. And the one thing they have in common is how they've both been wronged by authority figures, and this is their one chance to make things right. The main mystery in Sharp Objects is elevated by the ties Camille has to the victims, suspects, and to her hometown where the crimes took place. She's not just solving murders, but also uncovering family secrets that have haunted her entire life, which leads into the next step. The main character doesn't need to be specifically intertwined with the victim or the perpetrator, but if they're solving the case just because, there's not much to root for. Be it similar backstories or be related to the story's themes, the smallest connections can make a huge difference. Mikhail Blomkvist isn't connected to the victim, Harriet, like he was in the book, but his polyamorous lifestyle conflicts with the commitment Elizabeth wants from him, and oddly enough reminds me of how Martin and his father committed their, crimes together. Marty's developed in a familiar fashion, being unfaithful to his wife and enforcing his authority on his daughters, all while pursuing a killer of women. But if a character can redeem themselves from past mistakes, another can be motivated by their own tragedies, whether it be confronting abuse or the loss of a loved one, or both.
I read Marion's medical file. Your name is all over those records, information requested, explanations, every test, every diagnosis, information.
Yeah.
And you knew. And you just let it happen.
Well, what was I gonna do? Who was I gonna tell? Who the fuck's gonna believe me?
No wonder you're sick.
The case always starts off simple, but if it stayed that way, it'd be a pretty short story. In order to build suspense and tension, what started off as one victim is slowly revealed to have multiple victims and/or perpetrators. Once Camille has uncovered the truth about her mother, it's easy to see Adora as the murderer of the 2 girls. And while she's guilty of murder, Camille's horrified to discover the case she was sent for in the first place was completely separate. What starts off as one murder is slowly revealed to have been the work of a cult responsible for the disappearance of dozens of women and children, or one missing girl over 40 years ago took place after a series of serial murders by a father and son. Storylines like these allow for the characters not only to confront personal demons, but also seek justice for others. Most people I talk to usually prefer a movie or show to have an ending that ties up all loose ends, and I can understand why, but I love it sometimes when I'm left with answers to come up with completely on my own, especially in a mystery. And the ending to Sharp Objects is actually what inspired me to make this video. The show ends with the discovery that Camille's mother and sister are murderers, a cliffhanger that some might say goes against the hero's journey. But the ironic thing is, every tragic part of her life was linked to her mother's crimes, and upon this revelation, we're left wondering how Camille will take yet another revelation, and whether or not Emma will face justice like her mother or find a way to control her sister. True Detective ends with Rust and Marty stopping one killer, but many others have evaded capture, leaving it in the air if they'll ever face justice or if their lives will ever change for the better. And with Dragon Tattoo, Elizabeth sees Mikhail's views towards commitment have remained the exact same, leaving their future together uncertain. This video is not to say this formula would apply to every mystery film or show. After all, everyone is different. But these steps combined are what made all 3 of these stories engaging to me, and contributed to the characters' development, the environment they live in, and the conflict they're up against. And in case you haven't seen any of these shows or movies already, first of all, why did you watch this video? I completely spoiled the whole thing. Well, in any case, if spoilers don't faze you in any way, I highly recommend checking out any of these stories if you haven't already.